my talk today, I know that I'm usually a bit esoteric about titles, but this time not. The title is The Sword in the Sutra, Manjushri Bodhisattva. And in Mahayana Buddhism, as I know you know, Bodhisattva refers to anyone who has generated bodhicitta, this spontaneous wish and compassionate mind to attain Buddhahood for the benefit of all sentient beings. And Mahayana Bodhisattvas are spiritually, really, you can call them spiritually heroic persons that work to attain awakening and are driven by great compassion, what we call Mahakaruna. And they practice the path for the good of others. And in Soto Zen Buddhism, there are four who are the most well-known of all bodhisattvas and the most revered. One is Avalokiteshvara, or Kuan Yin, or Kanzeon, or Kannon in Japan. The Bodhisattva of compassion that we've been looking at and talking about for a couple of weeks. And there is Manjushri, the Bodhisattva of wisdom. Maitreya, Bodhisattva of metta, or Maitri, where his name comes from in Sanskrit. And he is the Bodhisattva of loving kindness. And Samattabhadra, who is the Bodhisattva of great conduct, or often called the Bodhisattva of compassion in activity, in what we do. And these are awakened warriors, they're sometimes called that. And they knew how to help people. They knew how to help people emerge from suffering. And with an understanding that this was suffering that was self-created. And they also knew how very well to teach us. So the Bodhisattva tradition, which focuses primarily on reaching out to the cries of the world, became a key feature of the development of the Mahayana tradition, beginning, say, around the 1st or 2nd century in India, and obviously extending into modern times, into our days. And throughout this time, people have paid homage to bodhisattvas in various ways. We chant to them, include them in our chants. For us, the 4 bodhisattva vows, the Heart Sutra includes Avalokiteshvara. They make pilgrimages to mountains and temples and other important places where the energy of the bodhisattvas is considered especially powerful. And obviously, we honor them through art, statues, etc. They're awakened beings, they're awakened spirits that we can call upon to help us. And importantly, they are not only this other power that we can turn to, which in Japanese is called tariki. They are also an example of self-power, jiriki. They are parts of our deepest selves, which naturally reach out to support human suffering also. And, over the past 6 months, I guess, we've discussed various bodhisattvas who are placed within the Zendo, and including Avalokiteshvara, who's on the altar and other places here. But I thought I might just mention something about the altar today, which is we follow general rules about how our altar is arranged, actually. On the left side of the altar, and Kate, can you put up our altar? This is just the picture of what's behind me right now. So as you're looking at the picture, on the left side of the picture in the front is our statue of Manjushri Bodhisattva. And then certain items on the altar, as you can see, are placed in direct line with him, or almost in direct line with him. To his right is a cup filled with water, a symbol of purity and clarity and calmness. And next to this cup is what's normally called an incense cup, incense bowl, which for us holds flower petals instead of incense. And these petals are offered as an expression of our conviction of the oneness of all things and the transient nature of all existence. And as we're looking at it, on the right side of the altar, in line with Manjushri, is a candle symbolizing the light of wisdom. Behind the candle is Kuan Yin, Kannon, Bodhisattva of compassion. And in line with her on the left is a vase of flowers symbolizing impermanence or transiency. And of course, our beautiful wooden statue of Buddha in the middle. So as you can see, our altar is an expression of our lineage, of our path, and also of our deepest selves. Thank you, Kate. Now, we have both Avalokiteshvara and Manjushri, which are actually the two most popular bodhisattvas in Mahayana Buddhism. And it's generally felt that Manjushri kind of appears everywhere. You see him in the Lotus Sutra, in the Prajnaparamita Sutras. He's all over the place. He's ubiquitous, we might say. And he actually was the representation of the Prajnaparamita, the perfection of wisdom writings. He was kind of the poster boy, if you would. But he's never been as popular as Avalokiteshvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion. And I think we can maybe understand this. Some time ago, and I don't even have a good sense of when, I heard a Buddhist monk, Zen monk, talk about these two bodhisattvas. And he expressed their differences in an amusing way, which it was humorous, but I'll just tell you the gist of it because I don't remember exactly what he said. But he said that we can reach out to Avalokiteshvara and we can hope and maybe even expect some sympathy or some empathy from her. You know, we might say to her that I am just suffering a great deal. I can't control my anger and I don't know what to do and it's ruining my friendships, whatever it might be. And she might very well reply, Patty, I can see that you're suffering greatly and I can help you. Whereas Manjushri might simply look at you and maybe say, what's wrong with you? Can't you see that you're wanting comfort for yourself right now, but you're the cause of all of your own suffering? You need to look more closely at this. You need to study the Prajnaparamita. So we have two different personalities in these bodhisattvas, but both are available to us. And obviously both are deep within us. But today I'm focusing on Manjushri, Bodhisattva. And he was actually the first of the bodhisattvas to have appeared in the early Mahayana texts and sutras, specifically, as I mentioned, in the Prajnaparamita Sutra. Now, just an aside, this is called the Perfection of Wisdom texts, and it's voluminous. And we, here in the Zendo, we chant the Heart Sutra every Sunday, our one-page summary of the Prajnaparamita Sutra. So just to give you some context. But because he is associated with the wisdom teaching, he symbolizes the embodiment of prajna, of this transcendent wisdom. And in fact, he focuses directly into this nature of reality. And here is a photo more closely of Manjushri on our altar. If you can put that up, please, Kate. Yes, thank you. So as usual, filled with symbolism, and just a few things I'll point out to you here. Manjushri is usually depicted as very young. He's young and fresh. And we think of him as meeting all of his experiences, all experiences, with a very open beginner's mind. And he sits on top of a lotus flower, symbolizing purity and overcoming adversity, the mud and the lotus. And beneath that, you see the lion, which is usually considered a symbol of courage and equanimity. And in his right hand is his sword, which he uses to cut through delusions. You can say that with his sword, he deconstructs all of our preconceived ideas, all these concepts that we hang onto. In his left hand is a scroll symbolizing the Prajnaparamita Sutras. And that happens to be the wisdom that his sword brandishes, really. Manjushri is known for his words, which are often called turning words, meaning they can penetrate and radically alter our consciousness. So he is a man of words. The Buddha often thought of him as being a bit too verbose. But it was the image of his sword, thank you, Kate, that brought me to talking about him today. And let's face it, it is the sword he's most known for. As many of you know, or some of you know, I spent this last week in the mountains with my family, and amongst them are 5 kids from 4 to 12. And it was a really beautiful week up there. It was warm weather during the day, very cool at night. And so we spent most of our time outdoors. But it is also just the right, beautiful environment for mosquitoes. And still enough water, although they need like a drop of water to have millions of offspring. But anytime we were outside, we were amongst these buzzing mosquitoes, which we all agreed were really quite aggressive this year towards us. But mosquitoes are just a part of the experience of being in the mountains, being out in nature. And, lucky us, now in these days, we have all kinds of deterrents, DEET or not DEET. Could cover up a clothing head to toe, screens you can put over your head. But 2 years ago, I had gone up to the cabin, as I normally do, to prepare for my family arriving. And my sister drove up a day later with my cousin. And as she always does, she stops at the store to buy this and that for the kids. And so when she arrived, she started unpacking things, and she said, "Look what I found. I've never even seen these before. I thought the kids could try them out." And she held in her hand a bright orange, what looked like a small tennis racket. And as I'm listening to her, she says, "It's a zapper." And my heart kind of sank a bit, really, because I don't want zappers to electrocute insects. It doesn't just kill mosquitoes, it kills everything. But now we had 2 little zappers that were suitable for children, and that they weren't big. So fast forward to last week, and our first night together outside, the mosquitoes buzzing about, the kids grabbed the rackets, pressed the buttons on the side, and the zapping sort of began. And they were running about, swinging and chasing and jumping. And this moving picture I had of beings energetically slashing through the air as they were wandering about. And it was really a challenge for me. But as the days went by, as we gathered outside the cabin, it just seems like the rackets were just kind of there, and from time to time, the kids would pick them up. And they were on the table next to me, and one time they were in the chair where I wanted to sit. And so I picked one up to be able to sit down. And at that time, I'm sitting there and just I got a bunch of mosquitoes buzzing around, and I just hit the buttons and I went, zoom. And it was just this knee-jerk reaction. I pressed the buttons and zap, zap, zoom. And I didn't do that just once. And so it was that this orange sword in my hand cut through my own delusions. My delusions that I would not, willingly do what I was doing. And I was doing this. And I don't mean this as just a tale about remorse about killing another living, breathing being. It is certainly that. But it's not only that, because the two-edged sword of Manjushri is in fact the rising and falling of each moment, and of all the details that present themselves in each moment are expressions of the teachings in our practice. So that which is represented by Manjushri is present in our bodies and our minds at this moment. It's our practice, even, of sitting upright in zazen, focusing on what arises with a beginner's mind. And that day was not a beginner's mind for me. This was some kind of old pattern that I'd done years ago, growing up, killing, get rid of mosquitoes. So Suzuki Roshi, our lineage founder, is known particularly as a beginner's mind teacher because of his adeptness at dispensing with old ideas, old opinions, and old patterns. And we can imagine Manjushri's sword, whoosh, whooshing through all these old patterns. A beginner's minds cut away thoughts as they begin to solidify. And the sword keeps coming down until the mind maybe goes silent. And there then is the possibility of a wonderful openness to what really is. And that's our practice. And so is the orange racket in my hand and the mosquitoes. I stopped using that orange thing, and I did what any of us would do. I put on more repellent, long sleeves and pants, and, acknowledge the delicate balance of wanting to spend time in the wild. Not just the mosquitoes, but having family come to me with their fears about spiders, sometimes kind of large spiders, on the wall in the bedroom, or in the bathtub, or the beetles who slipped into the shower and couldn't get out. And I'm always the rescuer of, that which others cannot tolerate in the wild of cabin. But this day was different, and that was worth looking into. And a bodhisattva practices wisdom by paying attention openly and unfolding this open attention further and further and deeper. And we do this in zazen. And as we do, it requires of us, I think, to look into and recognize just what these experiences on the cushion mean to us, mean about us, and mean about us in the world. And Manjushri would warn, we do this without taking up a stance, without demeaning ourselves or priding ourselves. So in my case, no point in judging myself about this. This is something I did, but definitely worth looking deeply at. Nor is it worthwhile praising myself for committing to not doing it again. It is said that if our wholehearted attention to whatever arises is modified in any way, so in other words, yay for me, good girl, or gosh, I can't believe you even did that. And we modify this attention on the cushion in any way, if any structure of mind comes up and is taken seriously, we've lost our way. We simply open, like Manjushri, to the details and the richness of our lives, to the wisdom of mindfulness and insight, to being aware of awareness, in as much as we have it at this moment. Being open to openness. And we just keep doing that endlessly.